Welcome back to another edition of the Horsemen Pro Football Talk podcast presented by Rising Sun Global Media. This is Zach.
I'm Jeffe.
Week 1 of the NFL fantasy season is in the books. A lot of big name players balled out. Some failed to show. There are also quite a few surprises among points getters, but that's expected only being week 1. Today, our own fantasy guru, Jeffe, is going to tell you who you need to start this week, who you should be keeping that bench warm, and who should you snag on the waiver wire to put your team over the top. This is Fantasy Central with the Horsemen. Let's go. All right, starting out, we're going to talk running backs. Who you sitting, who you starting, and are there any good waiver wire pickups you need to snag this week?
I'll kind of skip over the traditional names. You know, you're obviously starting your McCaffreys, your Zekes, your Barkleys, Camaras, those guys. But somebody that even though they have what some would say is kind of an easier matchup this week, there's a little bit of a threat there. Nick Chubb, he got out-touched by, I think, 5 by Kareem Hunt yesterday. And that kind of worries me, especially if they happen to get down in this game and they have to pass. Kareem Hunt is going to be in the game. And that's something to watch going forward. If this Browns team can't pick it up and if they get down in games, Kareem Hunt's going to have a lot bigger role than we may have thought initially. You know, Nick Chubb, a lot of people were thinking could be top 5 in this offense this year, but it's really not looking good after week 1. But they play Cincy this week. Both could have a big impact, so you might see both of them having 20-point games. But right now, I'd just be very cautious about Nick Chubb. Another one, Aaron Jones, is one that I wouldn't have thought to be a weekly starter. But they gave him a lot of touches, even though they still have Jamal Williams there, and they drafted A.J. Dillon. Aaron Jones got a lot of touches, which is very promising. The offense looked explosive, and he was the main guy in the backfield. So those are 2 guys that after week 1 kind of flip-flopped for me on who I would sit and start. I would be more cautious on Nick Chubb and be more bullish on Aaron Jones.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have. Well, I don't know if it's unfortunately, but I have both of them on my fantasy teams. Nick Chubb had a pretty disappointing week 1, so it is looking like they're giving Kareem Hunt the ball more. But last year, Nick Chubb was the league's leading rusher until the last week, so I'm hoping he'll step it up. Maybe there was some lingering issue with him. I don't know, but yeah, we'll see. As far as Aaron Jones, when Aaron Rodgers is going off like that, it's hard to get Aaron Jones the ball as often as expected, but he still put up some good numbers this week. So, who else you got starting and sitting?
Another one that I think is going to be a sit this week is Kenyon Drake. They're playing Washington, and for everything you want to say about Washington, their defensive line just ate up the Eagles, and
embarrassed them.
Embarrassed them. I mean, they got 8 sacks. Granted, Philly had a beat-up offensive line, but still 8 sacks in the NFL is 8 sacks. And this Cardinals offensive line isn't a whole lot better. That offense is just made to get the ball out of Kyler's hands. So maybe they go the route of passing the ball a bunch and taking advantage of the secondary. Maybe D-Hop gets a bunch of catches again, but I think that defensive front for Washington is going to play a big part in this game. So Kenyon Drake is somebody that I'd be staying away from this week.
I have to agree with you on that. I haven't been a big Kenyon Drake fan this year. When I was doing my analysis for the draft, I think I had him and picking in the 3rd or 4th round. I knew somebody was going to snag him in the 1st or 2nd. So I don't see a lot of value for him this year, especially bringing in DeAndre Hopkins. I anticipate Kyler Murray to be running and throwing the ball all over the place like he showed he did last week. So I think that might be a good play this year to keep Kenyon on the bench.
Yeah, let's probably move at least for this week.
All right, who else you got?
Well, somebody I think should be a starter this week. We don't really know. The Colts might start Nyheim Hines. But I think Jonathan Taylor, if you're one of those people that drafted him in the 5th or 6th round this year, you're in week 2 and you're already looking good playing him. He's a must start. The Packers just obliterated that Minnesota defense. So I think the Colts are going to look at that tape. They're going to look what can they exploit. They're going to open the playbook up more this week and see what this rookie can do.
Agree. I think they're both going to have big games. As we saw last week, Hines came out of nowhere. You had Mack and Taylor on the field, and Hines was the one coming out on top. But they are heavily invested in Jonathan Taylor. He now has a game under his belt. He kind of knows what to expect. So maybe they might switch it to Taylor, give him the lead role, and see what he can do. I know he could run the ball and he could catch the ball. So who knows? I mean, it's a 50-50 toss-up there, but I don't think you can go wrong either way.
Yeah, and as a Colts fan, one thing I know is with him in the backfield, we got to run a lot more than we did this last week.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's talk about waiver wire pickups for running backs. Malcolm Brown came out of nowhere. Probably, I don't even know what he was ranked, at least one of the top running backs that put up points this year. Are you taking him on the wire? And if so, are you starting him this week?
Absolutely. I mean, they're playing Philly. I think they can be taken advantage of. The Rams showed that he's going to have a heavy workload, and they might give Cam Akers more work as the season goes on. But after week 1, I'm really excited about Malcolm Brown. He's actually my top running back waiver wire pickup this week. So if I need him, I'm picking him up and I'm starting him right away.
Agreed. What about Benny Snell Jr.?
Yeah, Benny Snell's an interesting choice this week. Going forward, you'll really have to monitor James Conner if you have him. And if you pick up Benny Snell, you're going to want to monitor what's going on there. James Conner gets hurt a lot, so Benny Snell is probably somebody, if he wasn't drafted because this was a possibility, then he's definitely probably the number 2 or number 3 waiver wire pickup you're going to get for running backs this week. Going forward, going to be somebody you like to have. But if he's the number 1 running back in that offense, he should put up a decent amount of points this week.
Yeah, I like how the Steelers are playing. I think he'll definitely pick up some points if he's in there. So, like Jeff said, you got to monitor James Conner, see what's going on there. I know he has an ankle sprain. Those are hard to get over, especially turn around within a week to do it. So, wouldn't surprise me if Conner's out this game and Benny Snell gets a lot of targets and a lot of reps. All right, moving on to quarterbacks. Who you starting? Who you sitting?
So this week, there's one matchup that really makes me nervous because Stephon Gilmore and that secondary looked really good against the Dolphins. Now, granted, they were playing Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick never really plays too well against those Belichick defenses. So it wasn't the greatest example, but Russell Wilson against that Patriots defense still makes me kind of nervous just because of what they were able to do last year. I'm probably still playing them, but that's one that if you have a good backup, maybe you got Josh Allen a little later, then maybe you go ahead and play Josh Allen this week instead. Somebody that I'd be excited to play though is a Josh Allen because Josh Allen is playing Miami. That defense is going to have to prove itself. I think that they have a lot of components that could make them a really good defense, but Cam was able to just do what he wanted. So Josh Allen, another mobile quarterback, maybe he gets, the same rushing yards, puts up another 75 and a touchdown on the ground. But I think Josh Allen has better weapons, so he's going to be more capable of putting up big passing numbers against that Miami defense. So start and sit is maybe you start a Josh Allen and you sit a Russell Wilson this week.
Who's sitting? Russell Wilson. I mean, that might not be a bad play. The New England Patriots, although they're missing like half their team out on the COVID-19 list, they're still good, and they're still Belichick's defense. So that might not be a bad play at all, especially because Josh Allen balled out last week. So
yeah, absolutely. And, like you said, it's a Belichick defense, just so hard to count against a Belichick defense no matter who's there. Because no matter what's happened over the last 20 years, they always have a good defense. So just kind of expect it and be cautious for it. But if Russell Wilson's your guy, then obviously you're going to be playing Russell.
yeah, absolutely. So do you have any more starters and sitters? key notables?
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers had a huge week. You know, he was kind of down last year. He had a lot of weeks last year where he was in the bottom 12 of quarterbacks, but he exploded this week. He had a great week against an exploitable defense, but he's going up against another exploitable defense this week with Detroit. So that's like an automatic start there. Somebody I'm sitting is Carson Wentz. A lot of high hopes for Carson Wentz. He still had a decent week, but the weapons just aren't there. The offensive line really let him down. And so I think that's going to continue to be a problem going forward. You can't just fix the offensive line issues overnight. And if these guys can't stay healthy, then I mean you can only do so much as a quarterback. And so I think he's somebody you go ahead and sit against playing the Rams. They look really good against the Cowboys. Cowboys have all those weapons. The Rams did a pretty good job of bottling it up. So I'd go ahead and sit Carson Wentz this week.
Yep, right there with you. What's surprising with Aaron Rodgers, everybody was counting him out, and man, he came out slinging week 1.
Yep, absolutely. Took complete advantage of that defense.
Yep. So look forward to Aaron Rodgers continuing, especially because they drafted Love. He's got a chip on his shoulder, so he's doing everything he can to save his job now. All right, let me ask you about Gardner Minshew. Now, it's tough to talk about because he just shredded the Colts. He was, 19 for 20? Hell of a game on his part. Was it a fluke, or is he the real deal, and should you pick him up if you need a quarterback on the wire?
Well, to understand Gardner Minshew stats, you got to look at the Colts defense too. All right, we got some new components, and we play a 4-3 cover two. 4-3 Tampa 2. So Gardner Minshew was king check down. He didn't even reach 200 yards. Sure, 19 for 20 is great. He was really efficient, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. But the Colts gave him good field position after a stupid interception by Philip Rivers, and they were able to get a touchdown. The Colts had a couple mishaps, and Gardner Minshew got lucky. But as the season goes on and teams get out of that preseason type of funk that we saw in week 1, then I expect the Jaguars to start getting shit on like we expected.
I hope you're right. I really do. But yeah, I think it was kind of a fluke. I don't think Gardner's that good. I just think the Colts played horribly. So I don't know. We'll see. I wouldn't pick him up on the wire. I think there are better options out there to snag than Gardner. But anyways, moving on to receivers. Who's your key receivers you're starting this week?
Well, Davante Adams is going to be the number one. Pair him with Aaron Rodgers. He came out and started exactly where he left off last year. 14 catches. He had a huge game. And playing Detroit, I expect him to take complete advantage of that secondary. It's a really young secondary. And, he's so big and he runs routes so well. Aaron goes to him all the time. I expect that not to change this week.
Yeah, how do you feel about the other Packers receivers? I know last week Aaron Rodgers was spreading the ball everywhere. Are you just sticking with Davante Adams, or if you need another Packers receiver like Valdez-Scantling or Lazard, are you going to snag them up?
I really like MVS a lot. He has a lot of upside to him, but it really depends on week to week. What are they going to do week to week? And they got up last week and they still decided to pass the ball a bunch. And last year this was a run first team, so it's a really you got to see kind of thing. But MVS is one of the guys that's at the top of my waiver wire pickup list. If he wasn't drafted in your league, definitely try to go and pick him up.
Heard that. Any key players that you're going to be putting on the bench this week?
Yeah, I think a guy that had a good week, but has a little tougher matchup this week is Juju SmithSchuster. I think that offense looked good. They looked explosive at times. He was able to do his work, but that Denver defense looked really good. They've had some good drafts, and they were ferocious, which made me look dumb, honestly, because I thought that the Titans were going to go in there and Derrick Henry was going to run all over them. And that wasn't the case. They looked really good. They looked ready to go. And so I expect Juju Smith-Schuster to not have as much room. I expect Big Ben to not have as much time to pass. And so I would go ahead and sit Juju this week. Just be a little cautious there if you can afford to. Another person that you might think about sitting is Adam Thielen. They had a little trouble getting it going. Obviously as the game went on and all they were doing was passing the ball, he ended up getting his, but that offense struggled a little bit, and they're coming against this Indy team. I think Indy is going to be hungry and ready to go. I mean, they didn't let Jacksonville get 300 yards, which I don't think a whole lot of people expected them to, anyways. But still, holding an NFL team to under 300 yards any week is a good week. So I think it's a little tougher matchup. What his role as the number one, it's still up in the air, and it's wait to see kind of thing for me. So I go ahead and sit him against the Colts this week.
Heard that might not be a bad play. Hopefully the Colts defense shows up. That's coming from a biased perspective on my end.
Absolutely.
Any waiver wire picks if you're in need of a receiver that you're going to take this week?
The one that really excites me is Paris Campbell. Again, possibly from a bias standpoint, but Paris saw a lot of targets and he caught a lot of the balls. He looked really explosive. It looked like they really wanted to make a point of involving him in the offense. And he might have been drafted in a lot of leagues. I believe he was drafted in just under 50% of leagues. So it's kind of a 50-50 split. You might not be able to get him in your league, but if he's available, he's a guy that I'm really excited about going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see the Colts offense looking as bad as they did last week. So hopefully that will improve, but he has made it clear that he is a number 2 receiver in Indy behind T.Y. Hilton. So expect his targets and his touches to continue to go up throughout the course of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And another one real quick to just throw in here. Tom Brady always has these little slot guys, these little possession guys, right? He had his Wes Welker back in the day, his Julian Edelman. He threw the ball a lot to Scotty Miller. And, Scotty Miller didn't explode. He wasn't an explosive unit in the offense, but he's somebody that Tom Brady was checking down to a lot. Somebody he had a lot of trust in. So going forward, you might monitor that. If Mike Evans continues to deal with his hamstring injury and has to sit out, Scotty Miller is getting thrusted into a really good number 2 receiver role in that week. So that's somebody, if you're in a deeper league, 12, 14, 16 team league, he should definitely be on somebody's team this week.
Agreed. All right, moving on, tight ends. Who are your key starters this week?
Well, obviously, you want to go with Travis Kelce. That's your obvious fixture. Mark Andrews looked a lot more impressive than I expected him to. We expected him to get a little more workload with one of those tight ends not there anymore, but he was their red zone target. They got down there and he was looking for Mark Andrews, and that's a safety blanket. He's a big guy. He's built a lot like Travis Kelce. He kind of moves a lot like Travis Kelce. And so I would go ahead and be starting him against Houston. Houston just got exploited by Travis Kelce. So I would expect that Baltimore defense to come in, do a lot of the same things. I expect Andrews probably to get another touchdown if he's going to be their red zone guy like that. So I would definitely be starting him. Another one that I would be starting, even though he didn't have a good showing, they played a tough defense yesterday. The Steelers are insane on defense, but I would go ahead and start Evan Engram playing Chicago. Chicago. So hopefully this is the week that Evan Engram steps up. And, I expect Danny Dimes to have some more time to throw and be able to find his guy. He was getting the targets, but they just weren't on target because Danny Dimes couldn't really throw the ball well last night.
Yeah, I'm there with starting Engram against Chicago. I have him on one of my teams, and I sat him against the Steelers because the Steelers' defense is ridiculous, especially against tight ends. But Chicago, they're about middle of the pack when it comes to tight ends, except TJ Hawkinson last week had a huge game. So if you have Engram, I would say start him. I think he's going to get quite a bit of touches, even though they got plenty of weapons with Barkley and Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton, who went off. I think he will definitely get more targets, more touches this coming week. He'll make more catches. He was targeted, I'm going to say 7 times, but he only caught 2. So hopefully he can catch the ball. If he continues to drop balls or he can't pick them up, then it's time to worry with Evan Engram. But this week, throw him in there, start him. We'll see how he does. All right, any top defenses you want to throw out there? Because I know a lot of people like to play week by week. So if there's a defense out there, who do you got? Who are you going to take and start?
I think the Steelers defense is a definite start. The way they looked on it, dude, they looked insane, bringing so much pressure all game long. So they're an obvious start. The Ravens are an obvious start. The Bills are an obvious start. But a defense that surprised me that I was actually just kind of shitting on like 2 weeks ago was the Denver defense. As soon as Von Miller went out, I thought that defense was going to be done. You know, Chris Harris left in the offseason. They've had other key components leave in the last couple of years, but they've done a really good job drafting there, and they looked really good. There was a rookie corner, I can't remember his name, but he played outstanding for them. Justin Simmons was balling out, doing his thing. That defensive front was doing a really good job. So I would go ahead and start that Denver defense.
Heard that. Got any other defenses you want to touch on?
A defense that was kind of weak last year, but they looked really strong against Houston at times. Obviously, week 1, no preseason, kind of weird offseason. But a lot of room to get better, but they still look good. The Chiefs defense, they're playing the Chargers, and the Chargers couldn't get anything rolling against Cincy. So I don't expect them to get anything rolling here. I expect the Chiefs to dominate that game offensively and defensively. So I'd be putting them in the lineup too.
Heard that. All right, well, week 2 is only a couple days away. Our own fantasy guru, Jeffe, here's telling you who to start, who to sit, who to claim on the waiver wire so you can get the edge in your league. Jeff, you got any parting words you want to throw out there?
Just want to be cocky for a minute and say that I'm a beast, and I drafted McCaffrey number 1, and I had him plus Davante Adams plus Russell Wilson, the number 1, and number 2 this week, and balled out. So, I'm just saying, I'm pretty good at this. You should listen to me. If I'm wrong, let me know down below in the comment section.
That is why he's our fantasy guru. Except when I play him, then I hope he's completely wrong. But all right, so coming out this week, we got our week 2 preview. It'll be posted on Thursday morning. Get you ready for the Thursday night game. And then we're going to recap week 2 coming out next Tuesday, followed by some more Fantasy Central. So stay tuned. Hop over to our YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button. When we hit 1,000 subscribers, we are going to give away a free, authentic NFL jersey from the NFL shop, player of your choice, on us. We will buy it as a gift and token for you helping us reach our subscriber goals. So hop on over to our YouTube channel, hit subscribe, click that little bell icon so you're notified anytime a new video drops. You can also head on over to our Facebook, Twitter page at Horsemen Sports, where we're always posting a whole bunch of crazy stuff. Send us a message, shoot some comments, talk back. Also, don't forget, join in on our free NFL Pick'em League on ESPN. You can find the link on our Facebook page. Hop in, make the picks every week, go against us, go against other fans. If you come out on top, we'll toss you a prize at the end of the season. So, for Fantasy Central, I'm Zach. That's Jeff. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you soon.